Hello and welcome to this video. So in today's video I'm going to talk about the exchange rates, but before we get started let's quickly have a look at the objectives. By the end of this video you'll understand the nominal and real exchange rates and the differences, the advantage of real exchange rates, and we're also going to look at the supply and demand models in the context of exchange rate and currency, and then finally we're going to look at a few examples. So let's get started. So exchange rates, there are two types of exchange rates and I'm going to define each on the next slides. But in general, exchange rates are one of the most important variables in any open economy. And before we carry on, there are two definitions that I like to define. And the first one is currency appreciation. And this is when the value of any country's currency, the exchange rate goes up. So for example, if we're talking about Canada's currency appreciating, that means the value of Canada's exchange rate is going up. And currency depreciation is the opposite. So when you say Canada's currency is depreciating, that means the value of Canada's exchange rate is going down. So the first type of exchange rate is the nominal exchange rate, and this is the rate at which we exchange Canadian dollars for. Basically, it's the price of Canadian dollars in terms of any other currency. And I'm going to be using Canadian dollars mostly as the local currency, but of course this works with any two given currencies. Basically, the nominal exchange rate is the price, and whenever you want to purchase anything abroad, you first have to buy the currency. And a common place where I've seen this happen is the airports. So sometimes when you're in an airport abroad, they don't let you buy anything using Canadian dollars. They expect you to buy their currency first and then buy the things you want to buy. So the next type is the real exchange rate, and this exchange rate tells us the amount of foreign goods we can obtain with $1 Canadian. And the formula of real exchange rate is it is equal to the nominal exchange rate times the local price divided by the foreign price. And we're going to look at an example using this later. So one advantage of real exchange rate is that it gives us a lot of information about the relative price. For example, when the real exchange rate is high, that means the price, the relative price of goods is higher in Canada compared to other places. So we know that we want to import from abroad since things are cheaper there. And the main difference between real and nominal exchange rate is that nominal exchange rate, it tells us like for example, if we're trying to buy pounds, it will tell us how much a Canadian dollar can buy, while the real exchange rate is going to tell us the price in which any country's currency is going to be. For example, the price of pounds in Canadian dollars. So let's look at the supply and demand of Canadian dollars now. So the supply is going to be people selling Canadian dollars, and the demand is going to be people buying the Canadian dollars. And this is basically the same as any demand and supply model we know, such that when the price is high, the demand is low, and then when the price is low, the demand is high. The price of this Canadian dollar is going to be the nominal exchange rate. And on the horizontal axis, we have the quantity, the Canadian dollars. So sometimes anything, like let's say the Canadian goods are more attractive to everybody, to Canadians and to people abroad. That's going to cause both the supply and demand curves to shift, because if people are trying to purchase Canadian bonds because they're more attractive to them, then the demand is going to shift to the right. And that means the Canadian bonds are also attractive to Canadians, so they want to buy the Canadian bonds themselves, so they're not selling the Canadian dollars as much, so it's going to shift to the left, the supply curve. And so this is going to be the new equilibrium point, and that means the exchange rate is going to go up, but the change in the quantity of dollars is going to be ambiguous. So how can Canada increase the value of its currency? So given that the blue line is the old demand curve and the green one is the old supply curve, and the red line, this is where we want the new exchange rate to be. So in order to do this, Bank of Canada is going to sell any other form of currency they have in their reserve and buy lots of Canadian dollars. And that's going to increase the demand for Canadian dollars, and therefore this is going to shift the demand curve to the right, which in turn is going to lead the exchange rate to go up as expected. And the opposite is true for decreasing the currency. So the Bank of Canada is going to print lots of Canadian money, which is going to increase the supply, and that's going to shift the supply curve to the right, and therefore the exchange rate is going to go down. So let's look at a few examples. The first one is a real exchange rate example. So suppose one Canadian dollar buys 0.5 pounds, and if a watch costs you $20 in Canada and it costs you 15 pounds in London, what is the real exchange rate? So using the formula we looked at earlier, it's going to be the nominal exchange rate times the local price divided by the foreign, which is approximately 0.67. And next example, suppose Canadian goods are more attractive, like everything else is constant. How will this affect the nominal exchange rate? So this is the graph we've seen before. So they're attractive to everybody, both Canadians and people abroad. So lots of people want to buy Canadian dollars, and the supply is going to shift to the left, which means the exchange rate is going to go up. And here are my citation. I hope you found this video helpful, and thanks for watching.